In Oregon's Tillamook State Forest, a solitary forest ranger was about to stumble onto a long-buried Cold War secret. A routine wildlife patrol turned deadly when a covert government agency sent one of their own to erase any trace of a classified research facility. Elena Maddox wasn't your typical forest ranger. For 7 years, she served as a tactical search and rescue specialist in the U.S. Army's 160th SOAR, known for extracting lost operatives from enemy-held terrain under zero visibility conditions. When Agent Lucas Trent began hunting down intruders near the Pinesap logging trail, he had no idea he was facing the one soldier trained to survive what others couldn't even perceive. Elena initiated a silent counter-surveillance plan that would trigger a nationwide data leak and the unraveling of a decades-long conspiracy. What began as a loyal dog digging into the earth would become the reopening of a psychic warfare experiment. The Tillamook wilderness would never be the same after the echoes awoke. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn filtered through the mist-shrouded pines as Elena Maddox zipped her forest service jacket against the morning chill. The familiar weight of her backpack settled between her shoulder blades. Water, first aid kit, topographic maps, emergency radio. Necessary companions for the solitude she preferred. Ready, Kale? She glanced down at the German shepherd sitting attentively at her boot-clad feet, his dark eyes reflecting an intelligence that had always seemed to border on something more. He answered with a low, affirmative bark. Elena smiled, the small, private expression she reserved mostly for him. Let's go, then. Together, they set out into the emerald labyrinth of Tillamook State Forest. Their rhythm was practiced, perfected over 5 years of partnership. Kale ranged ahead, occasionally circling back as Elena made her careful observations. Trail erosion near the western ridge, a fallen nurse log across the huckleberry path, fresh bear markings on a Douglas fir, routine details that composed her daily reports. These morning patrols were Elena's meditation. The forest's familiar textures, damp earth between her fingers, moss velvet against her palm, pine sap sticky on her boots, were constants in a world that had never felt quite solid beneath her feet. Out here, at least, she knew exactly who she was. Ranger Maddox, protector of these ancient woods. By mid-morning, they'd reached the abandoned logging trail that had been closed to the public for decades. The trail itself was barely visible, now reclaimed by underbrush and fallen timber. Elena paused to check her GPS coordinates against her mental map. This area always gave her an inexplicable sense of déjà vu, like a photograph from someone else's childhood pasted into her memory album. Just a quick sweep, then we head back, she told Kale, who had been unusually alert since they'd crossed into this section of forest. His ears were pricked forward, nose twitching with greater intensity. Elena frowned. What is it, boy? Kale's answer was immediate and unexpected. He bolted from her side, a blur of dark fur disappearing into a dense patch of sword ferns. Elena called after him, her voice sharp with surprise. Kyle never broke formation during patrols. It was part of his military-grade training. Kyle, heel! She pushed through the understory, following the rustling trail of her companion's passage. When she caught up, Kale was in a small clearing dominated by a circle of ancient pines. His front paws worked furiously at the ground, dirt flying in dark arcs behind him. Kyle, stop! Elena approached, her frustration giving way to curiosity. The dog was entirely focused, digging with a purpose she'd never seen before. Had he caught the scent of some burrowing animal? But his behavior wasn't predatory. It was almost urgent. Elena knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. Easy, boy, what'd you find? Her fingers brushed something beneath the displaced soil that wasn't root or stone. Something metal. Cold. Fabricated. Hold up, she murmured, pulling her entrenching tool from her pack. With methodical precision, she began clearing away decades of accumulated forest debris. Gradually, a shape emerged, a perfect circle of rusted steel, about 4 feet in diameter. A hatch. Elena sat back on her heels, her heartbeat quickening. "What the hell?" Kyle whined, pawing at the edge of the uncovered metal. The hatch was military-grade, heavy steel construction with what had once been warning symbols now corroded into illegibility. Only faint outlines of government insignias remained visible, like ghosts of authority long abandoned. There was a handle, also rusted, but still intact. Elena pulled her radio from her belt, hesitating before pressing the transmit button. "Dana, this is Maddox." After a moment of static, Ranger Dana Whitaker's voice crackled through. "Go ahead, Elena." "I've found some kind of structural anomaly in Sector 7, just off the old Pinesap logging trail." "Structural? Like a collapsed mine entrance?" Elena stared at the hatch. "No. Man-made. Recent, well, relatively recent. Cold War era, maybe." There was a pause. "You want backup?" Elena's gaze drifted to the darkening sky, another storm rolling in. "Negative. I'll document and head back. Just wanted it on the record." "Copy that. Be careful out there." Elena returned the radio to her belt. Kyle was still fixated on the hatch, now sitting beside it with an expectant stillness. The rational part of her mind, the part that had kept her alive through wilderness emergencies and unexpected confrontations with both wildlife and humans, told her to follow protocol. Document, report, and let the proper authorities investigate. But beneath that voice was another quieter one, rising from somewhere deep in her subconscious. It whispered that she'd been looking for this her entire life. "This is idiotic," she muttered to herself even as she wedged her tool beneath the edge of the hatch. The seal broke with a sound like a gasping breath. Elena flinched backward, but nothing emerged except a faint, stale odor, recycled air preserved for decades. She leaned forward again, bracing herself as she heaved the heavy metal door upward and over, letting it fall open with a thunderous clang that seemed to echo for too long in the hushed forest. Revealed beneath was a narrow vertical shaft with metal rungs descending into darkness. And from that darkness rose something unexpected, a low, vibrating hum, mechanical, alive. Cale growled, a deep sound that Elena felt more than heard. She reached for her flashlight, clicking it on and directing the beam downward. The light caught glimpses of concrete, metal, and, impossibly, the faint glow of emergency lights still operational far below. "That's impossible," she whispered. Elena's hand trembled slightly as she played the light across the first few rungs of the ladder. There were markings stenciled on the concrete wall, faded black letters that read, "Echo Research Facility, authorized personnel only." Something twisted in her stomach, not quite fear, not quite recognition. A fragment of childhood memory surfaced, her father's hand, large and warm, guiding her through trees, his voice saying, "This is our special place, Ellie. Just for us." Then nothing. The memory dissolved like mist. Elena backed away from the hatch, suddenly needing distance. "Come on, Kyle." Her voice sounded strange in her own ears. "Let's go." The German shepherd hesitated, his gaze fixed on the open shaft. "Kyle. Now." Reluctantly, he obeyed, staying unusually close to her side as they made their way back toward the ranger station. The storm clouds had thickened overhead, but Elena barely noticed the first drops of rain. Her mind was filled with the image of that descending ladder, the humming darkness below. In the deepening twilight, she made her decision. Tomorrow she would return, alone. Whatever lay beneath the forest floor had waited decades to be discovered. It could wait one more night. Elena arrived at the hatch before first light, her breath fogging in the pre-dawn chill. She'd told herself the darkness would provide cover, but the truth was simpler. She hadn't slept, her mind churning with questions that had no answers. Not yet. Kyle stood beside her, unnaturally still. In her pack, extra batteries, water, protein bars, a more powerful flashlight, and her father's old hunting knife, a talisman she rarely carried but felt necessary today. "This is just reconnaissance," she told Cale, though the words seemed meant for herself. We document, we leave. The hatch lay as she'd left it, gaping open like a wound in the forest floor. The mechanical hum still emanated from below, steady and invasive. Elena switched on her headlamp and began her descent, metal rungs cold beneath her gloved hands. Kyle followed with surprising agility, having been trained for search and rescue in varied terrain. At the bottom, a narrow service corridor stretched ahead. Emergency lights sputtered along the ceiling, somehow still powered after what must have been decades of abandonment. The air was stale, but breathable, tinged with the metallic scent of old electronics and something else, something chemical. "Stay close," she whispered to Kale. The corridor opened into a larger space, what appeared to be a central hub. Dust-covered workstations arranged in a circle faced a wall of dead monitors. A faded emblem was painted on the floor, a stylized eye with radiating lines encircled by the words, Project Echo Perception Enhancement Division. Elena photographed everything methodically with her phone. This was government land, technically her jurisdiction as a federal ranger. But this facility clearly fell under different authorities that might not appreciate her trespassing. The first laboratory they entered contained equipment Elena couldn't identify, sleek metal chambers large enough to hold a human body, their interiors lined with what looked like acoustic foam. Adjacent to these were smaller booths with heavy doors and observation windows. "Soundproof rooms," she murmured, running a hand along one door's edge. "But why out here? Why underground?" Kale sniffed at the threshold of each chamber, his behavior increasingly agitated. When they approached a door marked sensory calibration, he suddenly reared back, hackles raised in an aggressive posture Elena had rarely seen. "What is it, boy?" The shepherd barked sharply at the empty doorway, teeth bared at invisible threats. "There's nothing there, Kale." But even as she said it, something prickled at the back of her neck, the sensation of being watched. Elena shone her light into the room. Empty, just another lab with strange equipment, another piece of the puzzle. They continued deeper into the complex. The power seemed stronger here, more lights functioning, occasional clicks and hums from machinery that refused to die. Elena found herself holding her breath between corridors, irrationally fearful of contamination. After 20 minutes of exploration, they discovered a secure area marked Echo Research, Isolation Wing. The pneumatic door was partially open, jammed with debris. Elena squeezed through, Kyle following reluctantly. Inside was what appeared to be a researcher's office, more personal than the sterile labs. Bookshelves lined one wall, papers still, scattered across a desk as if someone had left in a hurry. A leather-bound book lay open beside an overturned mug, its contents long evaporated into a dark stain. Elena approached carefully. The book was a journal, handwritten in precise, feminine script. April 17, 1978. The isolation protocols are proceeding as expected. Subject 4 showed remarkable neural plasticity after just 3 sessions. His ability to detect stimulus below normal perceptual thresholds has increased by 47%. Subject 7 remains our strongest candidate for Phase 2, though her emotional responses concern me. The children adapt faster than adults, their neural pathways still forming, still malleable. Colonel Hargrove insists we push forward with the deeper immersions despite my reservations. What choice do I have? The Soviets are already ahead, if Hargrove's intelligence is accurate. We're changing these children. I tell myself it's for their protection, for all our protection. But when I look into their eyes after the treatments, something is different, something fundamental. Dr. S. Rains, Research Director. Elena's hands trembled as she turned the page. More entries followed, clinical descriptions of neural feedback disruption and enhanced perceptual isolation techniques. The writing grew more hurried in later entries, the neat script deteriorating with what seemed like mounting stress or urgency. Kyle suddenly growled, staring at an empty corner of the room. "It's nothing," Elena said, but her voice lacked conviction. As if in response, the lights flickered violently. The background hum intensified, rising in pitch until it became almost painful. Then silence. Darkness. Only her headlamp remained. "Time to go," Elena whispered, tucking the journal into her pack. The lights stuttered back to life, brighter now, impossibly bright after decades of dormancy. Something had awakened in the facility's systems. Elena moved toward the exit, but froze at a sound that couldn't exist in this buried place. A child's laugh, high and clear, echoing from somewhere down the corridor. It lingered for just a moment before fading. "Hello?" she called, immediately regretting it. No answer came but the subtle adjustment of machinery, clicks and whirs of long-abandoned systems coming back online. Kyle whined, pressing against her leg. Elena shook her head, trying to clear it. Just the power fluctuations, she told herself. Old air in the vents. But beneath her ranger's training, beneath her logical mind, something responded to that laugh with recognition. They made their way back toward the exit with greater urgency than their exploration had warranted. Elena paused only once more, at a laboratory marked Subject Processing. Inside, rows of filing cabinets lined the walls. She quickly rifled through one drawer, finding personnel files with photographs paperclipped to medical data. Young faces stared back at her. Children, expressionless, each labeled with a number rather than a name. Her phone's flashlight caught a final journal on a nearby desk. Newer than the first, its leather covering less worn. Elena grabbed it without thinking, shoving it alongside the first. As she turned to leave, the last file drawer she'd opened caught her eye. A single folder lay inside, labeled in bold red letters, Subject 9, Special Containment Protocols. Below that, a handwritten note was affixed. This subject was never meant to leave. Memory suppression experimental. Monitoring must continue indefinitely. SR. A cold certainty settled in Elena's stomach. She needed to get these journals home, needed to understand what had happened here, what was still happening. The climb back to the surface felt longer than the descent. When they finally emerged into the forest, late afternoon light slanting through the trees, Elena gulped fresh air greedily. She secured the hatch, covering it again with soil and forest debris, but knew it was an empty gesture. The facility was awake now. Someone would come. Kyle watched her with unusual intensity, his dark eyes reflecting something Elena couldn't interpret. "Let's go home," she said, her voice strange to her own ears. "We need to figure out what this is, and what it has to do with me," she thought, but didn't say aloud. Elena's cabin creaked in the wind as rain battered the windows. Pages from Dr. Raines's journals covered her kitchen table, arranged chronologically, a timeline of scientific ambition corroding into moral compromise. March 1979, Subject 7 reported seeing people who aren't there during post-isolation integration. Not hallucinations. She described them as echoes. Same terminology. Subject 4 used independently. Significance? Colonel Hargrove wants to accelerate the memory excision trials. Says the children's psychological resistance is an impediment to progress. Elena rubbed her eyes. It was past midnight, but sleep felt dangerous somehow. Kale paced the perimeter of the small cabin, stopping occasionally to stare at corners where shadows deepened. "You feel it too, don't you?" she murmured. The second journal contained more technical entries: brain chemistry, neural mapping, sensory deprivation effects. But one passage from the final pages made Elena's blood run cold. December 1981. The memory excision protocol was successful with Subject 9. Complete compartmentalization achieved. The child no longer recalls facility experiences or familial connections. Identity reconstruction proceeding according to parameters. If integration with the control population proves successful, we can proceed with the others. Colonel Hargrove has arranged a suitable cover story for the family. God forgive me. Elena closed the journal, a heaviness settling in her chest. Children, experiments, memory manipulation. The words swam before her eyes, forming connections she wasn't ready to make. When she finally succumbed to exhaustion, her dreams were fractured and vivid. She's small, maybe 7 or 8, sitting in a sterile room before a large mirror. She knows there are people watching from the other side, though she can't see them. A woman's voice comes through a speaker, gentle but firm. "Tell me what you see in the pictures, Elena." Cards with ink blots appear on the table. But they aren't just random patterns, they move, shift, becoming faces that whisper to her. "I see people," she answers. "There are no people in those images, Elena." The voice hardens slightly. "Let's try the isolation chamber again. Perhaps you need more conditioning." Strong hands lift her, a door opens, darkness waits. Elena jerked awake, gasping. Cale stood at the foot of her bed, hackles raised, growling low in his throat. Not at some unseen threat, but directly at her. "Cale?" She reached toward him. "It's me, boy." The shepherd backed away, teeth bared, before abruptly shaking his head as if clearing it. Recognition returned to his eyes, and he whined apologetically. "What's happening to us?" She whispered, pulling him close. His heart raced against hers. Morning brought little clarity, but a semblance of normalcy. Elena, dressed for work mechanically, avoiding her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Fragments of the dream lingered, the sterile room, the mirror, the ink blots that moved, but she pushed them aside. She had a job, responsibilities, a life carefully constructed over years. Her radio crackled just as she was leaving. "Elena, we've got a downed tree blocking Cottonwood Trail. Also, there's a wildlife official here who wants to accompany you. Says it's about bear activity in your sector." "Copy that, Dana. I'll be there in 20. The ranger station bustled with morning activity when she arrived. Dana handed her a coffee, studying her face with concern. "You look like hell." "Thanks. Bad night." "Well, your day's not improving. Guy from Wildlife and Fish has been asking. For you specifically. Lucas Trent. Kind of intense." Elena followed Dana's gaze to a man reviewing maps in the corner. Tall, fit, with close-cropped hair and an easy confidence that screamed government training rather than wildlife management. He looked up as if sensing her attention and smiled, a practiced, disarming expression that didn't reach his eyes. "Ranger Maddox," he greeted, extending a hand. "Lucas Trent. I understand you patrol Sector 7 primarily." His grip was firm, professional. "That's right. I'm tracking unusual predator patterns, bears exhibiting territorial aggression in areas they normally avoid." His eyes scanned her face, looking for reactions, particularly around some of the older, restricted areas. Elena kept her expression neutral. "I haven't noticed anything unusual, but I'll show you the reported section." They drove separately, to Cottonwood Trail. Cale sat rigidly in the passenger seat of her truck, unusually alert. Elena's mind raced with possibilities. Wildlife official? Unlikely. The timing was too convenient. At the trailhead, Trent approached with an easy stride. "That's quite a dog you have, military trained?" "Rescue," she said curtly. "Previous owner was K9 unit." "Interesting." Trent knelt, offering his hand to Cale, who sniffed it without moving closer. They used shepherds extensively in Project Sentinel. Remarkable sensory capabilities. Almost heightened. Elena stiffened. "Never heard of it." "No?" Trent smiled again. That was rather the point. He stood, surveying the forest. "You know, we've had reports of unusual disturbances in this area. Ground installations being accessed without authorization. Sounds like a security issue, not wildlife management. Lines blur in my department." His tone remained light, but his words carried a clear warning. "Some things buried in these woods were meant to stay buried, Ranger Maddox, for everyone's safety." The rest of the morning passed in tense silence as they cleared the fallen tree. Elena felt Trent watching her reactions, measuring her responses. He knew about the facility, knew she'd been there. Back at the station, Elena made an excuse to access the old personnel archives, dusty filing cabinets containing records of everyone who'd worked in Tillamook Forest Service. If her father had been stationed here officially, there would be records. It took her nearly an hour to find it. Maddox, James R., forestry engineer, 1977-1982. Special assignment, infrastructure. Consultation with Department of Energy, Tillamook Research Station. Department of Energy, the same department that had funded countless Cold War research projects, including, Elena suspected, Project Echo. Her father hadn't disappeared on a hiking trip. He'd worked there, at the facility. Attached to his file was a single photograph. Her father standing before a tree, arm around a woman in a lab coat. The image was partly water damaged, but Elena could make out a name badge, Dr. S. Rains. The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. Elena steadied herself against the filing cabinet, breath coming in short gasps. Images flashed through her mind, her father's hand guiding her through the woods, a sterile room with a mirror, faceless men in white coats. Not dreams, not hallucinations, memories. That night, in the safety of her cabin, Elena made a decision. She withdrew a battered address book from her desk drawer and found the entry she'd never used. Noah Maddox, with a P.O. box address in a small town 50 miles north. Her brother had left home at 18, cutting all family ties. He'd been diagnosed with severe PTSD, paranoid delusions, obsessive behaviors, all stemming from what doctors called childhood trauma following their father's disappearance. But what if they weren't delusions? Elena dialed the emergency contact number listed beside his address, her hand trembling slightly. "This is Noah," a wary voice answered after 4 rings. "It's Elena." She swallowed hard. "I found something in the forest, something underground." A long silence followed, broken only by her brother's increasingly rapid breathing. Finally, "You opened it, didn't you?" Noah's voice cracked. "The door they said wasn't real." "Yes." "Then they'll be coming for you too." His tone hardened with certainty. "Meet me tomorrow, don't bring your dog. Kale comes with me everywhere." "Not tomorrow." Noah's voice dropped to a whisper. "That thing isn't what you think it is." Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The line went dead, leaving Elena in silence, broken only by Kale's low, continuous growl from the darkened hallway, where he stood watching her with eyes that reflected no light at all. Noah's house was a weathered Airstream trailer nestled deep in the woods, surrounded by makeshift security measures, tripwires, motion sensors, and cameras mounted on nearby trees. Elena parked her truck half a mile away as instructed, approaching on foot through dense underbrush. The absence of Kale at her side felt like a missing limb. She'd left him at the cabin after a troubling incident that morning. He'd snapped at her when she tried to put on his harness, then immediately cowered as if shocked by his own behavior. Whatever connection existed between Kale and the facility was deepening, transforming him in ways she couldn't predict. The door to the trailer opened before she could knock. Noah stood in the entrance, gaunt and unkempt, but with clear, intelligent eyes that studied her intently. "You're not wearing a wire, are you?" he asked. "Hello to you too, Noah." 20 years of estrangement hung between them. "And no, I'm not." He gestured her inside, quickly securing 3 separate locks behind her. The interior was obsessively organized. Walls covered with maps, newspaper clippings, and scientific articles, all connected by red string in a complex web of associations. A ham radio crackled softly in the corner. "You've been busy," Elena said, taking it all in. 20 years of research." Noah's voice was steady, his earlier phone anxiety replaced by focus. 20 years trying to prove I wasn't crazy, that what happened to us was real." He gestured to a small table. "Sit. Coffee?" "Please." Elena studied her brother as he moved efficiently around the cramped space. The gangly teenager who'd run away was now a wiry man with premature gray at his temples, his movements precise, but jittery. She recognized the hypervigilance. She'd seen it in rescued hikers who'd spent too many nights alone in the wilderness. "You found the hatch," he said, setting down 2 mugs of coffee. Tell me exactly what you saw inside. Elena described the facility, the journals, her dreams. Noah nodded occasionally, making notes in a worn notebook. The mirror room, he said when she mentioned her nightmare. I remember it too. They'd show us cards with patterns, ask what we saw. Ink blots that moved. Elena whispered. Yes. Noah's hands trembled slightly. You'd see people in them, faces. They'd punish. You for it? Put you in the isolation chamber. His eyes took on a distant look. But you were always their star. Echo 9. I heard them call you that. Echo 9? The file I found. It was your designation. Noah pulled a metal box from beneath a floorboard and extracted a yellowed piece of paper. I stole this from Dad's office when I was 12, right before he disappeared. Elena unfolded it carefully. It was a map of Tillamook Forest, torn at one edge. A location had been marked with a red X, precisely where she'd found the hatch. I knew it was important, Noah continued. After Dad vanished, I tried to tell Mom about the experiments, about the place in the woods, but his voice hardened. She was part of it. The relocation, the memory suppression. When I wouldn't stop asking questions, they diagnosed me with delusional disorder. But why? Elena's voice cracked. What were they doing to us? Expanding human perception, creating human sensors who could detect things beyond normal awareness. The Russians had a similar program, children who could see things others couldn't. Elena's mind raced. The journals mentioned neural feedback disruption and perceptual recalibration. They were breaking down the barriers between what's real and what's... Noah gestured vaguely. Echo. The world behind the world. A chill ran through Elena as she remembered Kale growling at empty corners, at her. What about my dog? She asked. There was nothing in the journals about animals. Noah's expression had darkened. That's not a dog, Elena. At least not entirely. Project Sentinel. They engineered companion animals with enhanced perceptual abilities, linked them somehow to their human counterparts, biological monitoring systems. That's insane, Elena said, but uncertainty gnawed at her. Kale's military background, his unusually high intelligence, his reaction to the facility. Look, at the back of the map, Noah said. Elena turned it over. Faded pencil markings covered the reverse, what appeared to be a floor plan of the facility, more detailed than what she'd explored. And in the lower corner, something was written in a familiar handwriting. For Elena and Noah, when you're ready to remember, find the sublevel, SOAR. Sylvia Raines, Elena breathed. She left this for us. She was our mother's best friend, Noah said quietly, and the only one who tried to stop the program. Elena's phone buzzed, a text from Dana. Where are you? Need to talk. Trent asking questions. Concerned about you. Before she could respond, Noah carefully pried apart the brittle edges of the map. Something had been hidden within the paper layers, a micro SD card. Technology from this century, Elena observed. Sylvia was thorough. This map is just a delivery system, insurance that we'd eventually find whatever's on this. Noah inserted the card into a battered laptop. A single video file appeared, dated just 3 years ago. They exchanged glances before he pressed play. Dr. Sylvia Raines appeared on screen, older than in her ID photo, her face lined with fatigue but her eyes still sharp. Her voice was low, urgent. Elena, Noah, if you're watching this, you've started to remember. I don't have much time. What we did to you, what I helped do, was unforgivable. The program created 8 children with heightened perceptual abilities, but you, Elena, Echo 9, were different. You could see them clearly. The echoes, shadows of what exists in parallel space. Sylvia looked over her shoulder nervously, before continuing. Your father discovered I was documenting everything. He tried to help me shut it down, expose it. They killed him for it. Your mother chose protection. She agreed to the memory suppression protocols for both of you in exchange for relocation and new identities. But the conditioning is temporary. It erodes over time. Her voice became more urgent. There's more you need to see. Evidence I've compiled. It's hidden in the facility's restricted sublevel. Coordinates attached. But be careful. They're still watching. And Elena, the companion they assigned you, the animal. It was engineered to monitor you, control you if necessary. It isn't safe. The video ended abruptly. "Kyle," Elena whispered. "He's been watching me all along." Noah put a hand on her shoulder. The first physical contact between them in decades. "We need to go back to the facility. Together. First, I need to talk to Dana." Elena stood, suddenly restless. If Trent's been asking questions, she could be in danger. "You can't trust anyone," Noah warned. "Dana's different. She has nothing to do with this." When Elena returned to the ranger station 2 hours later, Dana was waiting in the parking lot, arms crossed. "Where the hell have you been?" she demanded. "Trent has been here asking all kinds of questions about your patrol routes, your background. He implied you might be unstable. Did he mention my father?" Dana's expression shifted from anger to concern. "Actually, yes." "How did you know?" "It's complicated," Elena said. "I need you to trust me. I've trusted you for 5 years, but you're scaring me, Elena. You've been disappearing, your reports are incomplete, and now this government guy is suggesting you might be a security risk." Dana stepped closer. "What have you gotten yourself into?" "Something buried," Elena answered, weighing how much to reveal. "Something that happened to me as a child." Dana studied her for a long moment. "This isn't just about you finding something in the woods, is it?" "No." Elena met her gaze steadily. "It's about what found me." Back at her cabin, Elena found the front door ajar. Inside, furniture had been overturned, her computer was missing, and the journals were gone. Of Cale, there was no sign. Only deep scratch marks on the inside of the door, as if he'd been trying to escape. On her kitchen table lay a single piece of paper, coordinates that matched those in Dr. Raines's video, along with a handwritten note. "Some doors should remain closed. Some truths are too dangerous. Make the right choice. Trent." Elena's phone rang. Noah. "They took Cale," she said before he could speak. "It's worse than that," Noah replied, his voice tight with fear. "I tracked the facility's power grid. Something's happening, Elena. The whole system is powering up to full capacity." "What does that mean?" "It means they're reactivating Project Echo, and you need to go back now, before they finish what they started 25 years ago." The hatch stood open against the night sky, a dark mouth leading into the earth. Elena's flashlight beam caught raindrops as they fell into the abyss, momentarily suspended like stars before disappearing into darkness. Behind her, Noah kept watch, rifle cradled in experienced hands. "Any sign of Trent?" she asked. "Not yet, but he'll come." Noah's eyes scanned the tree line. "You sure about this, going back down there?" Elena checked her pack one final time. Extra batteries, water, a hunting knife, and her father's old service pistol Noah had given her. "I need answers. And I need to find Cale." "Even knowing what he is?" "Especially knowing what he is." Elena's jaw tightened. He didn't ask to be made. The descent felt different this time, purposeful rather than exploratory. The facility hummed with renewed energy, emergency lights burning steadily instead of flickering. Something had awakened the sleeping complex. At the bottom of the ladder, Elena paused, consulting the map from Sylvia. "The sub-level access is through the main lab hidden behind a storage unit." They moved cautiously through corridors that now seemed alive with invisible presence. Elena felt watched from every angle. Cameras she couldn't see, sensors tracking their movement. Twice, Noah stopped abruptly, cocking his head as if hearing something beyond normal perception. "There are frequencies," he explained. "Subsonic. They used them during the tests." The main laboratory was as Elena remembered it, sterile and uncanny with its forgotten equipment. But now a low mechanical whine filled the air, punctuated by clicks and beeps of machinery rebooting, after decades of dormancy. There. Noah pointed to a storage unit that didn't quite align with the wall behind it. Together they pushed it aside, revealing a reinforced door with a keypad. Elena hesitated. Sylvia didn't give us a code. She wouldn't need to. Noah studied the keypad. Echo 9, that's you. Try your birth date. Elena entered the numbers, 060974. The keypad flashed red. No. Noah's eyes narrowed in concentration. Not your birth date, your intake date. Memory surfaced unbidden, a fragment she hadn't known she possessed. A woman's voice, clinical yet kind. Subject 9, intake complete, June 9th, 1980. Elena entered 060980. The lock disengaged with a heavy thud. How did you know that? Noah asked. I didn't, she replied, pushing the door open. But part of me remembered. The sublevel stretched before them, a labyrinth of narrow corridors. Unlike the main facility, this area showed signs of deliberate sabotage. Ceiling panels hung loose, exposed wires dangled like vines, and in places the path was partially blocked by fallen debris. Someone tried to ensure this place couldn't be used again, Noah observed. Dad, Elena said with sudden certainty. He tried to shut it down when he learned what they were doing. They picked their way carefully through the wreckage. As they rounded a corner, motion sensors triggered, and banks of lights flickered to life sequentially down a long corridor, as if the facility were welcoming them, or leading them. I don't like this, Noah muttered. At the end of the corridor stood a door marked Echo 9, Primary Subject Housing. Elena's hand trembled as she pushed it open. Inside was a child's bedroom preserved like a museum exhibit. A small bed with faded star-patterned sheets, bookshelves filled with science texts far beyond elementary level, a desk with paper and colored pencils, and on every wall, one-way mirrors, observation windows through which researchers had monitored their subject. This was my room, Elena whispered. Look. Noah pointed to a terminal that had activated automatically. On the screen, personnel files scrolled past. Intake logs, medical data, cognitive assessments. Each bore Elena's photograph at different ages, from 4 to 8 years old. Each listed her designation. Echo 9, Primary Perceptual Channel. Elena approached the screen, her reflection ghostly against the scrolling data. They took us from our real parents, didn't they? Noah nodded grimly. We were gifted children, special. They told our parents it was an exclusive government program for exceptional youth. By the time anyone realized what was really happening, a monitor on the far wall suddenly flickered to life, showing surveillance footage of the room itself, but from years earlier. A small dark-haired girl sat cross-legged on the bed, drawing intently. A woman entered the frame, Dr. Sylvia Raines, younger, her hair pulled back in a severe bun. What do you see today, Elena? The recorded Sylvia asked. The child, Elena, looked up. Her eyes tracked something invisible moving across the room. The shadow people are back. There's 3 today. And what are they doing? Watching, always watching. Young Elena returned to her drawing, crude figures rendered in black crayon, tall and thin with elongated limbs. Present-day Elena stared, transfixed. I remember this. The shadows. No, one else could see them. A series of rapid beeps emanated from the terminal and the screen changed. Dr. Raines appeared again, this time in a recorded message, her face haggard with exhaustion or illness. Elena, if you're watching this, the memory blocks are degrading completely. I'm so sorry for what we did, what I helped do. We thought we were expanding human perception, creating a defensive advantage against Soviet psychic programs. Instead, we opened doors that should have remained closed. Sylvia looked over her shoulder, then continued urgently. Your father discovered the truth too late. The echoes aren't psychological phenomena. They're actual entities that exist in parallel space. You were the only subject who could see them clearly, interact with them. When the entities began to respond to that interaction, she swallowed hard. People died, Elena. Your father tried to shut it down, destroy the facility. They killed him for it. A low growl interrupted the recording. Elena spun around, heart racing. Kale stood in the doorway, fur bristling. Kale! She moved toward him, but Noah caught her arm. Wait. The German shepherd's eyes reflected an unnatural amber light. He advanced slowly, growling not at them, but at an empty corner of the room. You see them too, Elena whispered, understanding dawning. That's why they made you, to see what I saw. Noah backed toward the terminal. Elena, something's not right. He shouldn't be here. Trent took him. Unless Trent sent him, Elena said, realization hitting her like ice water. As a tracker. Kale suddenly lunged, his powerful body colliding with what appeared to be empty air. But as Elena watched, the space seemed to bend, ripple, and for an instant, she saw it too. A tall, slender shadow with too many joints recoiling from Kale's attack. They're here, she gasped. The echoes. I can see them again. Noah had moved to a side door, yanking it open. Elena, in here, now. She followed him into an adjoining chamber and froze. The room contained 8 cylindrical cryopods arranged in a circle. 7 were empty, their glass covers shattered. The 8th remained intact, frost clouding its surface. A label affixed to its base read, Echo 8, subject terminated. Noah approached it cautiously, wiping condensation from the viewing panel. Elena moved beside him, then recoiled in horror. Inside was a child, a boy no older than 10, his face peaceful in suspended animation. Terminated doesn't mean killed, Noah said softly. It means contained. They couldn't let him go, couldn't risk exposure, so they kept him here. A piercing alarm suddenly cut through the facility. Lights shifted from white to pulsing red. Steel shutters began descending over doorways. Lockdown. Protocol activated, an automated voice announced. Security breach in sublevel. All personnel evacuate immediately. Kyle barked urgently from the other room. Trent, Elena said. He's here. We need to get out, now. They rushed back through the child's bedroom to find Kale standing at the exit, hackles raised, staring down the corridor. The German shepherd turned to Elena, his intelligence now unmistakably beyond normal canine capacity. In his eyes, she saw recognition, loyalty, and warning. He's coming with us, Elena told Noah firmly. Elena, I don't care what they made him to be. He's choosing now. She knelt before Kale. Aren't you, boy? Kale pressed his muzzle against her hand. Find us a way out, she whispered. The shepherd turned and bounded down the corridor, Elena and Noah following as steel barriers continued to descend around them. Through the facility's speaker system, they heard a voice, Trent's voice, crisp and authoritative. Echo 9. I know you can hear me. Whatever Sylvia told you is only part of the story. The entities you see, they've been waiting for you. Your father understood the danger. That's why he agreed to the memory suppression in the first place. Liar, Elena muttered, following Kale as he led them through a maintenance shaft. The protocols weren't about controlling you, Trent continued. They were about protecting everyone else. Ahead, Kale stopped at a ventilation grate that opened into darkness. Elena could feel cool night air flowing through. A way out. Behind them, footsteps approached, multiple sets. Time to choose, Elena, Noah urged, forcing the grate open. Trust yourself or trust them? The answer was simple. Elena crawled into the vent behind Kale toward the surface, toward the truth, no matter how dangerous it might be. Burn protocol initiated. Facility purge commencing in 5 minutes. The automated announcement echoed through the ventilation shaft as Elena crawled desperately toward moonlight. Behind her, Noah struggled to keep pace, his breathing ragged in the confined space. Kyle had already reached the exit, pacing anxiously as he waited for them. "What's a burn protocol?" Elena gasped, pulling herself through the narrow opening, into the night air. Noah emerged after her, face streaked with sweat and grime. "Total destruction. They're erasing everything. Data, equipment, evidence." He helped her to her feet. "And us, if we don't move." The forest around them felt unnervingly alien, shadows longer than they should be, trees that seemed to shift when viewed from the corner of the eye. Elena felt a pressure in her head, like the beginnings of a migraine. The world behind the world was bleeding through. "We need distance," Noah urged. "The burn will trigger secondary explosions." They ran, Kale leading the way through undergrowth that seemed to reach for them. Elena's ranger training had given her an intimate knowledge of these woods, but tonight, nothing looked familiar. Paths appeared where none had existed. Landmarks stood in wrong places. A low rumble vibrated through the ground. Behind them, a column of blue-white light shot skyward from the hatch location, followed by a concussive blast that knocked them forward. Trees splintered. The air tasted of ozone and chemicals. "Keep moving," Noah shouted over the cascade of secondary explosions. Elena stumbled to her feet, disoriented. The blast had intensified the pressure in her head, and now translucent figures shimmered at the edges of her vision, the echoes growing more visible with each passing moment. Headlights cut through the trees ahead. Elena pulled Noah behind a fallen log, Kyle crouching silently beside them. A Forest Service truck emerged from the access road, Dana's truck. "Wait," Elena whispered, catching Noah's arm as he raised his rifle. "She's my friend." The truck stopped. Dana stepped out, wielding a shotgun and scanning the darkness. "Elena," she called. "I know you're out here." Elena hesitated, then stood. "How did you find me?" Dana's expression was a mix of relief and fury. "I put a tracker on your pack after Trent started asking questions." She lowered her weapon. What the hell was that explosion? The entire North Ridge just lit up like the 4th of July. "It's complicated," Elena said, gesturing for Noah to join her. "Uncomplicated," Dana demanded, eyeing Noah suspiciously. "Because I've spent the last hour dodging black SUVs and men with military hardware. They've set up roadblocks on every access road." Elena studied her friend's face. "Why are you helping me? Trent must have told you I'm unstable, dangerous. He told me you accessed a restricted area and compromised national security." Dana's jaw tightened. "But he also ordered me to provide your home address and personnel file without a warrant. That's when I started tracking his movements instead of following orders." The ground shook with another smaller explosion. In the distance, emergency. Lights flashed as vehicles converged on the blast site. "We need to move," Noah insisted. "They'll have thermal imaging drones." Dana made a quick decision. "My truck now." They piled in, Kyle jumping into the back seat, alert and watchful. Dana accelerated down a maintenance road few knew existed. "There's an old fire watch tower 10 miles east," she said. "Decommissioned years ago. We can regroup there." As they drove, Elena explained, the facility, the experiments, her childhood, the echoes. To her surprise, Dana listened without interruption, her expression shifting from skepticism to horror. "I always knew you had ghosts, Elena," she said. Finally. "Just didn't expect them to be literal." "They're not ghosts," Noah interjected. "They're entities from a parallel dimensional space. Our reality brushes against theirs occasionally. Most people can't perceive it, but echo subjects were conditioned to see the overlap." Dana's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "And the government kidnapped children for this?" "Not kidnapped," Elena corrected. "Recruited. Our parents gave consent, not understanding what they were agreeing to. When things went wrong," she trailed off, remembering Sylvia's recorded confession. "People died," Noah finished grimly. They reached the watchtower as dawn broke, casting long shadows across the forest. The structure stood abandoned but intact, offering a 360-degree view of the surrounding wilderness. Dana secured the perimeter while Elena tried to process everything that had happened. Kale sat beside her, head resting against her leg. A gesture so normal, so dog-like, it was hard to reconcile with what she now knew about his origins. She ran her hand along his fur, feeling the steady rhythm of his breathing. "I don't care what they made you to be," she whispered. "You chose me." The German shepherd looked up, his dark eyes reflecting intelligence that went beyond training or instinct. An understanding passed between them, a bond formed not by engineering but by years of mutual trust. Noah's handheld radio crackled to life. "Elena, are you safe?" His voice was distorted by static. She grabbed the radio. "We made it to Dana's fallback location. Where are you?" "Had to split up, using the old Ranger frequency. Less chance they're monitoring it." Papers rustled in the background. "I've been studying Sylvia's final journal pages, the ones I downloaded before everything went to hell. There's something else, Elena. Something about another survivor." "Echo 8? The boy in the cryopod?" "No, Echo 7. Noah's voice lowered. "According to these notes, Echo 7 escaped during the project shutdown. Never recaptured. Sylvia tracked the subject for years afterward, documented anomalies." "What kind of anomalies?" "Temporal distortions, spatial warping. The subject's connection to the Echo entities strengthened over time, affecting the physical world around them." Dana moved to the watchtower window, scanning the horizon with binoculars. "We've got movement. 2 miles northwest. Vehicles coming. Up the forest road." "Trent," Elena said. "How did he find us so quickly?" "They're tracking Kale," Noah said through the radio. "He's transmitting. Some kind of subdermal beacon. It's why they let him find you in the facility. He led them right to you." Elena looked at Kale, who met her gaze steadily. "Can we disable it?" "Not without specialized equipment." Noah's transmission became choppy. "Listen, the coordinates in Sylvia's journal. Echo 7's last known location. It's in the deep forest, a place called the Shimmer Zone." "I know. It," Dana interjected. "Hikers avoid it. Compasses fail there, GPS goes haywire. We've had search and rescue teams refuse to enter after dark." Noah continued. "If anyone knows the truth about Project Echo, it's 7. And if the journal is right, 7 might be able to help you control what's happening to you." "What do you mean, what's happening to me?" Elena asked, but she already knew. The pressure in her skull, the increasingly visible echoes, the way the forest itself seemed to respond to her presence. "Your abilities are reactivating, Elena. Breaking through the suppression. The facility explosion accelerated it somehow." In the distance, Elena could see dust plumes rising from approaching vehicles. They had minutes, not hours. "Send me the coordinates," she told Noah. Dana turned to her. "You're not seriously considering this? We need to get to the authorities, expose what happened." "Trent is the authorities," Elena replied. "And I need answers only 7 can give me." Her phone pinged with Noah's message. The coordinates marked a location deep, in the old-growth section of the forest, a part so remote and dense that even Elena had rarely ventured there. "I'll create a diversion," Dana said after a moment, decision made. "Lead them away from you, buy you time. They'll arrest you, or worse." Dana checked her shotgun. "I didn't spend 15 years in this forest to stand by while some government spook covers up child abuse in my jurisdiction." Elena embraced her friend fiercely. "Thank you." Kyle suddenly stiffened, his attention fixing on the eastern tree line. He wasn't growling or barking. Instead, his posture showed recognition, almost reverence. "What is it, boy?" Elena asked. The German shepherd took several steps toward the trees, then looked back at her expectantly. "He senses something," Noah's voice crackled through the radio. "Something like him." Elena felt it too. A presence, a pull eastward toward the coordinates Noah had sent. Something waited in the deep forest, something that understood what she was becoming. "Time to go," she said, gathering her pack. As Dana prepared to drive off as a decoy, she caught Elena's arm. "When this is over, come find me." "I will." Elena and Kyle slipped into the trees as the first light of dawn filtered through the canopy. Behind them, Dana's truck roared to life, driving purposefully toward Trent's approaching forces. Ahead, the forest grew denser, older, and the boundary between worlds thinner. The deeper Elena and Kyle ventured into the old-growth section of Tillamook Forest, the more reality seemed to waver. Mist clung to ancient trees in ways that defied natural movement, flowing against the wind or hanging motionless in perfect spheres. Sounds arrived delayed or distorted, bird calls echoing too long, branches cracking before they visibly moved. Elena checked the coordinates again, though her phone's GPS had stopped functioning hours ago. She navigated now by Kale's certainty and her own inexplicable sense of direction, a pull toward something that called to her on a frequency beyond conscious hearing. "We're close," she murmured, though no one but Kale could hear. The German Shepherd moved with unusual precision, no longer simply following a scent but responding to something Elena was beginning to perceive as well. Ripples in the fabric of reality, like heat waves rising from summer asphalt. They crested a small rise, and there in the valley below stood a structure unlike any ranger outpost Elena had ever seen. It appeared to be a standard monitoring station, the kind used for wildlife observation, but the building was partially transparent, as if it existed simultaneously in different states. One moment solid, the next gossamer, like a building caught between dimensions. "Echo 7, Elena whispered. Kale's posture changed, alert, but not aggressive. He recognized something in the warped reality surrounding the structure, something familiar. As they approached, Elena felt a pressure building behind her eyes, not painful, but intense. The echoes she'd glimpsed since the facility explosion now became fully visible. Elongated shadow figures drifting between trees, observing with faceless curiosity. The station door hung open, swaying slightly though there was no breeze. Inside, scientific equipment lay scattered and repurposed, monitors displaying incomprehensible data, makeshift antennas constructed from salvaged parts, walls covered with equations that seemed to shift when viewed directly. "Hello?" Elena called, her voice sounding flat in the unnatural acoustics. Movement from the corner drew her attention. A man unfolded from the shadows, tall and gaunt to the point of emaciation. His hair was wild, gray streaked with remnants of dark brown, his clothes tattered but curiously clean. When he raised his head, Elena gasped. His eyes were completely black, not blind, but seeing in ways human eyes weren't meant to. "Mirror. Girl," he whispered, his voice resonant despite its softness. "Echo 9. They said you'd never remember." "Echo 7? Elena asked, though she already knew. He nodded, a strange fluidity to the movement. "Once, before. Names change when you see through the walls of things." His gaze shifted to Kale. "Tracker unit, Sentinel class, but you've evolved beyond your programming, haven't you?" Kyle didn't growl. Instead, he lowered his head in what looked almost like deference. "You know who I am," Elena said. "I watched you in the mirrors. You saw them too, the ones between." 7 gestured to the shadow figures now freely moving through the station. "The others couldn't, not fully. But you were perfect. That's why they feared you most." A memory surged into Elena's mind, visceral and complete, triggered by 7's presence. She's 6 years old, strapped to a chair in a white room. Adults in lab coats adjust equipment around her. Dr. Rains stands nearby, clipboard in hand. "Begin the test," a man's voice orders. A screen flickers before her, displaying shapes that aren't just shapes. They move wrong, exist wrong. Behind them, faces press forward as if trying to emerge through thin fabric. "Tell us what you see," Echo 9. "People," she answers. "Lots of people. They want to come through." Alarm spreads through the researchers. Dr. Rains steps forward. "Elena, remember what we practiced. Don't engage." "But they're asking for help," she insists. The man, Colonel Hargrove, approaches Dr. Rains. She's bonding with them. This is exactly what happened with Seven before the incident. Shut it down. We can't just abandon her progress, Sylvia argues. She's our most promising subject. She's too receptive, Hargrove snaps. We need perceivers, not conduits. Prepare her for memory suppression, and get that new Sentinel unit ready, the one designed for her. If she breaks conditioning, it's our failsafe. Elena staggered as the memory released her. They removed me from the program because I connected with the echoes. Yes, Seven confirmed. They wanted observers, weapons, not bridges. He approached a humming device in the center of the room. I became what they feared, a doorway, but they never understood what waits on the other side. What does wait there? Elena asked. Seven smiled, an expression both gentle and terrifying. Nothing we have words for. Neither salvation nor destruction, just otherness. Outside, the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors broke the unnatural silence. Kyle tensed, growling. "Soy Trent," Elena said. "How did he find us without Kale's tracker?" The boundary thins when two echo subjects converge, Seven explained, moving to a bank of jerry-rigged equipment. Reality leaks. He placed his hands on what appeared to be a modified radio transmitter. They won't take us again. A wave of energy pulsed outward from Seven's fingertips, visible as rippling distortions in the air. The helicopter engine sputtered, then whined as the aircraft veered drunkenly away. Through the window, Elena watched armed figures in tactical gear stumble and fall as they approached, clutching their heads. "What did you do to them?" Showed them a glimpse. Just a glimpse. Seven's voice strained with effort. Their minds can't process it. Elena moved closer, noticing now how Seven's body seemed partially transparent in certain lights, as if he were dissolving into the boundary between worlds. "You're dying," she realized. "Transforming," he corrected. "But yes, this form fails. Cannot sustain the connection much longer." He gestured to a metal case beneath a makeshift console. Everything Sylvia documented, everything they tried to erase. "For you." Elena retrieved the case, feeling its significant weight. "Why me?" "Because you chose, even as a child. You resisted. Your empathy was stronger than their conditioning." Seven's form flickered momentarily. "They created Kale for you. Genetically. Engineered, neurally enhanced. A companion to monitor you, control you if necessary. But they didn't anticipate the bond. He chose you too." Kyle moved to Elena's side, pressing against her leg as if confirming Seven's words. "What happens now?" Elena asked. "Trent won't stop." "No. Men like him cannot permit mysteries beyond their control." Seven approached Elena, his movements increasingly otherworldly. "I'm tired, Elena. Decades watching the space between. Guarding the threshold. My time ends. I can help you," she offered, though uncertainty colored her voice. "No. But you can release me." Seven's black eyes held hers. "End this half-existence. I've completed my purpose by finding you." Elena shook her head. "I won't kill you. Not killing. Freeing." He gestured to the shadows moving around them. "They wait for me, have always waited." Elena felt tears on her cheeks. For this broken man, for what had been done to them both, for all they'd lost. There has to be another way. "There isn't." Seven's voice was gentle. "But you have another path. You can expose them, stop them from creating more like us. The choice I never had, you have it." Outside, Trent's incapacitated team was recovering. Radio chatter indicating reinforcements approaching. They had minutes at most. "The data," Seven urged, pointing to the case. "Everything you need, now please let me go." Elena looked to Kale, whose intelligent eyes seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. "I won't end your life," she said finally to Seven, "but I will open the door if you show me how." Seven's expression transformed with gratitude. He guided Elena's hands to a device that pulsed with energy, unlike anything she'd felt before. Together, they adjusted settings Elena didn't understand, but somehow recognized. Think of it as a threshold, Seven instructed. Not death, transition. As the device hummed to life, the boundaries of reality around them thinned further. The shadow figures drew closer, no longer menacing, but expectant. Seven stepped away from Elena, his form increasingly untethered. "They will help you escape," he said. "A last gift. But after this, close yourself to them until you're ready, until you understand fully." Elena activated the device with trembling fingers. A doorway of light appeared, not opening to anywhere, physical, but to a state beyond normal perception. Seven moved toward it, his body releasing its human form as he approached. "Thank you, Mirror Girl," he said, his voice already distant. "Remember, you always had a choice. That was your true power." He stepped through, and the doorway sealed behind him with a surge of energy that knocked Elena backward. The shadow, figures dispersed like smoke and wind, and the monitoring station solidified fully into physical reality. Outside, the sound of approaching vehicles grew louder. "Time to go," Elena told Cale, clutching the precious data case to her chest. Somehow she knew exactly which way to run. The Maddox family cabin stood weathered but resolute against the evening sky, nestled in a clearing that Elena's father had chosen decades ago. Not by coincidence, she now understood, but because it lay at the nexus of ley lines that Project Echo had mapped extensively. James Maddox had positioned his family at the threshold between worlds, perhaps as guardian, perhaps as penance. Elena surveyed her preparations one final time. Noah had helped wire the cabin with cameras and microphones before departing with the most damning evidence. Insurance against any attempt to silence them both simultaneously. Dana had done her part, leaking carefully curated information to press contacts about unauthorized Cold War testing in protected forest land. And now the trap was set. "He'll come alone," Elena told Kyle, who sat attentively at her feet. "His kind always does." 3 days had passed since their encounter with Echo 7. 3 days of carefully orchestrated breadcrumbs leading Trent away from the monitoring station and toward this confrontation. Elena had left just enough digital traces, credit card, purchases, phone signals, to make her location obvious without seeming deliberate. As darkness fell, Elena powered up her father's old ham radio. "Noah, are you in position?" "Ready?" Her brother's voice crackled through the speaker. "Satellite. Uplink established. Once you give the signal, everything goes live. Worldwide servers, untraceable distribution." "And Dana?" "Press conference scheduled for morning. She's being careful, positioning it as environmental whistleblowing. Toxic waste cover-up. Enough. To grab headlines without revealing the full scope until we're ready." Elena nodded, though Noah couldn't see her. "And you'll stay hidden even after?" "That's the deal. Someone needs to remain in the shadows to ensure the data stays public." His voice softened. "You sure about your part in this? Once it's done—" "I know," she said. "No going back." Headlights swept across the cabin windows, a single vehicle approaching along the access road. "He's here," Elena said, beginning final phase. She positioned herself at the kitchen table, Seven's data, cache open before her. The cabin door wasn't locked. This wasn't about preventing Trent's entry. It was about controlling the confrontation. The door opened with deliberate slowness. Agent Lucas Trent stepped inside, alone, as Elena had predicted. His tactical gear was gone, replaced by a simple, dark suit. Only the slight bulge beneath his jacket betrayed his sidearm. "Ranger Maddox," he said calmly, as if this were a chance meeting. "You've led me on quite a chase." Elena gestured to the chair across from her. "I had questions that needed answers." "And did you find them with Echo 7? Trent remained standing, eyes scanning the cabin's interior. "I found enough." "I doubt that." Trent's professional demeanor slipped, revealing frustration. "You have no idea what you're involved in." What risks you've taken by reopening these pathways. Kyle emerged from the shadows behind Trent, silent but unmistakably present. The agent tensed but didn't turn. "I know about Project Echo," Elena said. "About the experiments on children. About the echoes, the entities from parallel space." "Partial truths," Trent dismissed. Like any good cover-up, the project disguised itself within layers of deception. Yes, there were experiments. Yes, children were involved. But not for the reasons Seven would have you believe. "Then enlighten me," Elena challenged, her finger poised over the transmit button hidden beneath the table. Noah's signal to begin, the upload. Trent finally took the offered seat. "The echoes were never the goal, Elena. They were the threat. Soviet psychological warfare had discovered them first, entities that exist just beyond normal perception. They attempted weaponization through child subjects, creating what they called doorways. And we followed suit," Elena said bitterly. "We created a defense," Trent corrected. "Project Echo didn't open pathways. It identified children who could naturally perceive these breaches and trained them to seal them. Your father understood this. Why do you think he positioned your family here at one of the thinnest boundaries?" Elena's certainty wavered. "You're lying." "Am I?" Trent leaned forward. "Ask yourself, why did Seven live in isolation? Not because we hunted him, but because his presence thins reality. He wasn't our victim, Elena. He was our failure, a subject who bonded with the entities instead of resisting them. And me? Was I a failure too? You were our greatest success." Something like pride flickered across Trent's face. "Even at 6 years old, you demonstrated remarkable resistance to echo influence. Your emotional stability, your empathy, created a barrier they couldn't penetrate. That's why you were removed from the active program and given a normal life. You were too valuable to risk." "Then why the memory suppression? Why Kale?" Elena's voice hardened. "Why kill my father when he tried to expose the program?" Trent's expression darkened. "Your father wasn't trying to expose us. He was trying to shut us down because we were about to expand the program. Use what we learned from you to enhance other subjects." He paused. "And we didn't kill him. Seven did, when your father confronted him. The man you met wasn't a victim, Elena. He was compromised decades ago, a conduit for entities that have been influencing him ever since." Elena's finger trembled over the transmit button. Could Trent be telling the truth? The uncertainty must have shown on her face. "The data you have," Trent continued, gesturing to the files before her. "It's incomplete. Sylvia Raines had her own agenda. She believed communication with the echoes was possible, beneficial even. She was wrong, and people died because of her idealism." "Prove it," Elena demanded. Trent reached slowly into his jacket, extracting, not a weapon but a small device that projected a holographic display. "Project Echo full authorization. Command access, Trent, Lucas J." The device illuminated, displaying classified footage Elena had never seen, the aftermath of what appeared to be an incident at the facility. Bodies lay contorted in unnatural positions. Among them, a younger Seven stood unharmed, surrounded by shadow figures that seemed to emanate from him. "This is what happens when the boundary fails," Trent said quietly. "What Seven brings with him." Elena stared at the footage, her worldview shifting once again. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I'm not your enemy." Trent's voice softened. "Your abilities are reactivating, Elena. You'll start seeing them more clearly, feeling their influence. You need our help to control it." A high, clear laugh suddenly echoed through the cabin, a child's laugh that couldn't possibly exist there. Kyle growled, his attention fixing on an empty corner where reality seemed to waver slightly. Trent's face paled. "They're already here. They followed you from Seven." Elena felt it too, the thinning boundary, the pressure behind her eyes. But unlike before, the sensation wasn't invasive or frightening. It felt like recognition. In that moment of clarity, Elena pressed the transmit button. "What did you just do?" Trent demanded, rising sharply. "Ensured the truth survives," she answered calmly. "All of it. Sylvia's records, Seven's data, my testimony. Let the world decide what to believe." Trent lunged forward, but Cale was faster, intercepting him with military precision. The agent drew his weapon, firing a shot that grazed the shepherd's flank. Cale yelped but maintained his position between Elena and danger. Elena reached for her father's gun, concealed beneath the table, but found herself unwilling to fire. Instead, she focused on the wavering corner of the room, on the boundary that had grown so thin. "Help us," she whispered. The shadows responded. The room temperature plummeted. Lights flickered as reality itself seemed to warp. The shadow figures that Elena had glimpsed throughout her journey now materialized fully. Elongated, elegant forms moving with impossible fluidity. Trent fired wildly at them, bullets passing harmlessly through their non-corporeal forms. Terror replaced his professional composure. "What have you done?" he gasped. "Chosen," Elena answered simply. The entities surrounded Trent, not attacking but enclosing him in a sphere of altered reality. When they dispersed seconds later, the agent stood frozen, conscious but catatonic, his mind overwhelmed by perceptions it couldn't process. Elena knelt beside Cale, examining his wound. "Just a graze," she murmured thankfully, applying pressure to stop the bleeding. The radio crackled. "Elena, it's done," Noah announced. "Data's live worldwide. Servers in 17 countries. Impossible to contain. We won." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Trent's backup, too late to stop what had already begun. Elena gathered the remaining files in Seven's device. "Time to disappear," she told Cale. They slipped out the back door as vehicles converged on the cabin. Dana would handle the aftermath, presenting herself as a whistleblower who had uncovered illegal government testing. She would face suspension, perhaps worse, but the carefully constructed narrative would eventually vindicate her. Noah would remain in hiding, monitoring the data's distribution, ensuring the truth couldn't be buried again. And Elena, as she and Cale melted into the forest darkness, she felt a strange peace. The boundaries between worlds would always be thin for her. She understood that now. Not a curse, but a responsibility. Not a weapon, but a bridge. 3 months later, rumors began circulating in rural communities bordering Tillamook Forest. Stories of a woman ranger who appeared when hikers were lost, always accompanied by a German shepherd with unusually intelligent eyes. They spoke of how she could find anyone, no matter how hopeless their situation, as if she could see paths invisible to others. Some claimed to hear children's laughter in her presence, though she traveled alone. Elena Maddox had disappeared officially, but in the space between worlds in the forest that had always called to her, she had finally found her true purpose. And when shadows moved between the trees at dusk, she no longer looked away. She watched, she guarded, she remembered, and sometimes, in the deepest part of the forest where reality wore thin, she even understood. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.